There's the voice. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'll introduce myself, Tara Wickwire, and I am a brand and network lead with Sandpiper Ventures. And as most of you know, we are a women-led venture fund investing exclusively in women-led tech companies. So we started the Masterclass series in the interest of giving our founders, both our portfolio companies, our pipeline companies, and partners and companies beyond, some professional developments, the chance to hear from a whole range of experts. And today we have a really, really amazing presentation. We're joined by Heather Tulk, and she's the Senior Vice President and President, Commercial and Public Sector of TELUS Business Solutions. And I can tell you that Heather is going to be able to really give us an interesting perspective from both sides, from the founder's perspective and then from the corporate perspective as well. So, but just a little bit about Heather's experience as SVP and President of the Commercial and Public Sector. Heather leads a national team driving transformational business growth with Canada's largest organizations, including medium, large enterprise and government entities. And as part of her mandate, Heather's team partners with companies and industries to reimagine how TELUS's connectivity and intelligent technology solutions can drive growth and differentiation for their business. She joined TELUS in 2023 and has more than 2 decades of P&L leadership, revenue growth, and customer experience strategy. And she's worked across a variety of sectors in every region of the country and is highly regarded for taking on complex, transformational challenges and driving industry-leading results. So she's based in Toronto, and she grew up and started her career in St. John's. And she has a BCom from Memorial, an MBA from Queen's, an ICD designation, and is a chartered marketer. And she's also received a number of industry awards, including being named to the Diversity 50 by the Canadian Board Diversity Council, Canada's most powerful women top 100 through the Women's Executive Network, and Canada's top 40 under 40. And she passionately believes in helping making communities better than we found them, and is involved in several causes for mental health, youth diversity, and inclusion. She also sits on the board of Canadian Hearing Services and is past chair of the Toronto chapter of the International Women's Forum. So we are really lucky to hear from Heather about doing business through partnerships, and I will now hand it over to her, and we look forward to your wisdom. And we welcome questions and comments in the chat, and after Heather's presentation as well, we will have a chance you can ask her anything. That's what these sessions are all about. So Heather, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Tara. It's certainly
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we're good. Sorry.
I think we were both unmuting me at the same time and having offsetting
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So I'm so happy to be here, Tara, and thanks for that very kind introduction. I'm hoping today I can provide some tips and tricks and feedback over. As you mentioned, I've operated on both sides of the small to large business partnership. So I've been in large companies, which I certainly am today after joining TELUS earlier this year, who partner frequently with small ventures. But I've also worked in the side of founder-led and scale-up companies who are trying to partner with larger organizations. And so I've seen it from both sides over many years. And I've learned a few things along the way that I've really come to think are intrinsic to the art of partnership between smaller and larger organizations. And so that's what I'm hoping to share with everyone today, to take what you can out of it, but also looking forward to the questions and comments because I'm also looking forward to learning from you. So with that, I'll get into it. I thought I'd start with just a little bit of context about TELUS and our view on partnering. I promise it won't be an advertorial, but I do think it helps to set the overall context for the discussion. So most of you know TELUS in one way or another, often through either, you might be a mobility customer of ours at home, or if you live in the Western Canada, other products at home, or certainly we serve businesses across the country. But what a lot of people don't know about TELUS is we're actually quite a global operation. We operate today in more than 160 countries around the globe through our divisions, our health division, our TELUS International division, our TELUS Agriculture and Consumer Goods division, and of course, the core TELUS Communications division that people know. Another thing people don't know probably about TELUS is how active we are in partnering with early stage companies, and particularly through two of our entities. We have our TELUS Ventures division, which is our own corporate venture capital funds. It's one of Canada's most active venture capital funds with more than 500 million of assets under management. And we've invested in over 100 companies since we started the fund in 2001. And we really look for companies that share our view of the customer and are really doing innovative things, tackling both either our core customer lines or the areas of social purpose and innovation that we see. So related to that, we also have the TELUS Pollinator Fund for Good, where it's a $75 million impact fund. And we invest here specifically in startups that are driving social and environmental change in the world. And so certainly in a lot of cases, a lot of those companies are women-led and women-owned. And so we certainly have a lot of experience partnering there as well. In terms of our reach, and so to the perspective, if you're a startup, just to show, and I using this slide just to illustrate the difference in scope that you can have when you're partnering. So if you're a startup company and you're trying to partner with a customer like TELUS, and there's or another one like us, our scale is certainly quite broad. So we operate our agriculture division in over 60 countries. Our consumer division has 18 million subscribers. Our digital health business, we cover 67 million lives that we serve across 6 continents in our health business. And of course, our business clients in North America across small, medium, public sector, large and mid-market enterprises. So when you're looking to partner with a company like TELUS, the first question you of course need to ask yourself is, where can I fit? How can I partner? How can I? Because certainly, if you're a startup or a scale up, taking on, TELUS or another brand like ours is very, very broad. And so the first thing is really, where is there a very beneficial partnership is really the first question to ask. So if you look at these two things I just said, you might go, oh, well, where do I start? And whether it's with TELUS or another company like ours, there's really a few things that I think are key to how you can successfully go about framing a partnership with large organizations. But I thought I'd start with the first decision you have to make is, what kind of partnership am I interested in? So I put just a few of the examples of the types of partnerships that large companies will often engage with smaller enterprises. And really, most times the company is looking to do this to foster innovation, to access new technologies, or to support their growth. But they can come at those partnerships from many, many different types. So there's strategic investments, joint ventures. You see the list here on the slide, very extensive. And even within these, there's a lot of subtypes. So as an example, strategic partnerships could be co-funding investment, could be mentorship, could be incubation, many different types there. In the same way, probably one of the first things smaller companies think about when trying to partner with large organizations is trying to get their product to market. And but even those, there's vast numbers of ways you can do that. There's co-marketing, there's reseller agreements, there could be private or white labeling, joint selling, product integration. So really, the first decision an entrepreneur needs to make is, what types of partnership am I open for? What types of partnership do I think I can sustain? And really trying to focus in, and then what companies are willing to do that kind of partnership. Because what you don't want to do as an entrepreneur is get pulled in many, many different directions with many, many different types of partnerships, because that can very quickly overscale and be more than you can handle successfully. So that's the first thing I think entrepreneurs need to think about, is what type of partnership they're really looking for. A second thing to consider beyond what type of partnership is, am I ready? And what should I have in mind? How should I evaluate my partnership? So there's kind of 4 areas I like to think about that in. The first is benefit analysis, which is, really at its basic, what am I trying to get as the entrepreneur? And what's this potential partner trying to get? And how equal or not are those benefits? And that's a really important question to ask, because that will help you form your pitch to your partner. And also your understanding of how important this partnership could be for you. A second one is the motivations of each partner. So why do you want to do this? What are you trying to get out of it? And then likely, what are they trying to get out of it? And how are they motivated? How are they rewarded? What do they need to see in order to stay with you through the partnership journey? I would also suggest that you prioritize these motivations, because you can think of a lot of different things you might want out of a partnership, but what's really most important to you and what's the order of it? Because at some point, either early or late in that partnership journey, you're going to have to really ask yourself a tough question. Is this worth it? Am I going to get out of this what I'm needing? And can I deliver to the partner what they need? So really digging deep on those motivations on both sides is really important. A third, and probably really important, if I had to pick one, put them equal on the slide here, and they are to some extent, but the one I believe is most important is alignment of goals and values. I would thoroughly research the goals and values of any target partners that you have. I would ask them very detailed questions and really pick beyond, what's on the website, really understand how decisions get made at your company. What are the frameworks that you use to make decisions? What's important to your company? Really understanding that, because if you don't have that basic alignment and you're not both in it for aligned reasons, when you hit bumps in the partnership, which you will, 100% guaranteed, this can be real derailing. So it's really important that you just don't, take for granted how these companies are motivated and what their goals are in partnering with you. That's critical. And then the fourth one, also extremely important, is timing and readiness. Are you prepared for this? Are you prepared for it to go well? And what does that mean to your operation? Are you prepared for what happens if it doesn't go as well as you want, as quickly as you want? And can you sustain that? So in terms of assessing that readiness, you have to think hard about your current stage of growth and where you are as an entity. You have to think hard about your financial stability. Be very clear, how much do I have to invest here? And how can I sustain it? And then operationally, am I ready? In any of these kind of partnerships, you're going to be at its heart outweighted. There's going to be more of them than there are of you. And so you need to make sure that you have enough that you can put in to both sustain their interest and also protect your operation so it doesn't become overwhelming for you. So these, I think, are the four key things to consider before you even start to really enter into a partnership and make that partnership work. So to that point, you might say, wow, that sounds like a lot. Is it even worth it? Well, that's another thing to consider. There are definitely real benefits of partnership, and they can be very, very important to your business and can really be a turning point in your business. The right partnership done well can help you scale in a way that other things just cannot, and you could not organically do on your own. So they can bring you a very strong brand and credibility. Partnering with the right company that you have that alignment of goals with can actually really, really help you scale your business much faster and build your brand and bring you a lot of credibility that's meaningful to your investors, credibility that's meaningful to your customers, credibility that helps you attract team members and the right quality of team members. So it can bring a lot of value to your company. Also, access to potential customers. Most companies, if they are large, in fact, do have very, very extensive customer bases. Now, you need to know, and I'll get to it in a second, they're extremely protective of those customer bases for very good reasons, but they can help you tap into those new markets really, really fast. They can also help you lever up your resources and knowledge And I don't mean lever in terms of debt leverage, although maybe that might be one of the partnerships you're looking for. But what I mean is leverage in allowing you to really punch above your weight, to get access to resource capital that you wouldn't otherwise have, to advanced technologies, to specialized resources, really to learning and paths to market that you probably can't afford on your own at this stage in your journey. So that can be really, really valuable as well. But there are some risks you have to manage. Large businesses are by definition not as agile as you are. They can be sometimes frustratingly slow, and they can sometimes seem very complicated, maybe even chaotic in their decision making. They can be time consuming and overwhelm the resources that you have and take your eye off some of that organic growth you would otherwise drive on your own. And their process and and sometimes the priorities can shift. They can have people changes, they can have priority changes. So you really have to invest in staying close to this partner to make sure that you're not surprised by one of those shifts. So, that's kind of the overview. So what I wanted to do in the next part, the remaining of my talk, is talk to you about how I think you can set yourself up to capture these benefits and mitigate these risks so that you can have successful partnerships with larger organizations as you move forward. So what do I think are the elements of successful partnership? I really bucketed them into 5 groups, and I'll go through each one. But I have at the bottom of the slide here, the one that I think is most important, and I'm not going to go through it in the 5, but I think it overarches everything, which is you must do all of the 5 staying focused on the end customer. It will be very easy when you enter into a partnership with a large company to get brought into the process, which you need to, and I'll talk about that, but to lose sight of that joint end customer. And when I talk about the aligned goals earlier, you need to make sure you have a joint customer goal, that your end customers and their end customers are in some way, in some level, totally aligned, because that is the point that will keep your partnership together. If you don't have that, or you lose focus on that, the partnership can become very fraught. So you need to have clearly identify what are we trying to achieve in our common end customer terms, and constantly go back to that at every stage as you move your partnership forward. I can't stress that enough. In terms of the other 5 things that are important, I'll go through each of these in order. So the first is pitch your value. Now, people think of pitches as a lot of different things, but really, you need to be ready to crisply and clearly demonstrate how your product or service is going to help your target partner with one of their key needs. And when you boil it down, most of these large businesses are trying to do one of 4 things, or all 4 things all at once, but they're trying to grow their business and or try and improve their end-to-end customer experience, trying to optimize their operations to improve their cost structure, or in the case if they're a public sector partner, their effectiveness structure, or improve their team member experience. So those are the 4 things at its core any large business is trying to do. And I can tell you, any executive of any large company you meet is fixated on one or more of these things. So you have to be able to pitch yourself against how you're helping them do one or more of these things. And you have to be really clear. You have to be willing to make a very firm commitment and draw a really direct line on how your product and your partnership is going to help them do that. And I can tell you, in my current role on the large business side of the fence, I have 5s, if not 10s, of potential partner outreaches a week. So if you scale that out, that's 52 times a year, I'm getting 5 to 10. So anywhere from 250 to 500 partnership outreaches of some form. Now, that's obviously overwhelming. I obviously don't engage on almost all of them. So if you want me to engage, even if you have a warm introduction, So if you have a warm introduction to me, that's great. You'll get the opportunity to pitch. So that networking is critically important. But when you get that, you have to be able to really pitch to me concisely and very, very clearly how you're helping me with one of these things. And it's better if you've done your research in advance, either through your warm introduction, other people in your network, basic web searches, go in on LinkedIn and see what I'm posting about. Really try and figure out which of these is most important to me and which one is, you're most aligned with my strategy on. And again, if you're not, pitch a different partner, and there's no harm in that either, because you really have to be selective too in who you're going after and investing your time in. But you have to be able to be really clear and concise, and don't pitch me too early. Don't pitch me when you just have an idea. Don't pitch me because your friend said, oh, I know Heather and I can get you an introduction. Pitch me when you're ready to be compelling. That's really, really critical. So that's the first one. Pitch your value and be really clear on that. The second one, once you pitched your value, now you want to start moving this partnership along. I'd say there's 3 characteristics that need to come together. And you have to have them. Anyone you're working with on your leadership team has to have them. Anyone you're putting against this partnership, you have to know you're going to need to be patient, you're going to need to be flexible, and you're going to need to be persistent. And sometimes all 3 of those at once. Why is this? Well, you're going to need to get to know the partner company's decision-making, operational, and partnering structures. And depending on the company, they can be complex and varied. So you're going to need to really invest in understanding that. And that's where that persistence comes, because some of these answers are not going to be obvious. You're going to have to develop contacts and relationships at multiple layers. First of all, really important piece of advice, protect yourself against the unintended exit of anyone you're talking with. So don't have all your eggs in one basket. Make sure you're developing those contacts and relationships with multiple people so that if you're inoculated from any one of them changing roles or exiting the enterprise. Understand, and I think this is an important one, that you need to bend to match them. And now I don't mean bend on what your company needs to be successful. I don't mean accept deals that don't have value. I don't mean accept unreasonable asks, but understand that if there's core processes that they follow as a business, if you want to partner with them, you're going to have to adapt to their processes, because no matter how much they might say, oh yeah, we'll fix that for you, the reality is your ability to have them change processes for you is very small. So you have to be able to bend to adapt to their processes. I would investigate that early. If you don't think you can do that, then move on to a different partner, because this is one that will derail you. And, having been on the entrepreneur side, you have to protect yourself from being drained by partnership, by moving too deeply into a partnership discussion that isn't going to end up at fruition. And one of the main reasons I see that happen is that they get really far down the road only to realize that your processes can't match theirs. And then the patience comes in. You do have to understand it's going to take time. And it also is never going to be a straight vertical ride. Wish it was. I've seen very few of those. It's usually much more jagged, and if you Google or look at, the change roadmap is very much like that. You'll have some really great early wins. You'll get all excited. Then you'll run into problems. Then some people give up. But if you don't give up and you're persistent and patient and flexible, you can get back and back. And usually it's in the second or third wave of growth that I really see these partnerships take off for entrepreneurs, not the first. So you've got to be patient and flexible through those first couple of fits and starts, and manage those relationships that you've developed so that they're committed to going through that with you as well. Really important. The third, prepare for scrutiny. And this is one I've seen many times. You have really exciting early meetings. Everyone's, oh, this is going to work. Everyone's all excited. Oh yeah, it's almost on a handshake. We're going to go and we're going to change the world together. And then all of a sudden, you got to talk to the finance group. You got to talk to the audit group. You got to talk to the legal team. You got to talk to the risk team. You got to talk to the privacy team. You got to talk to the security team. Like, these are very real considerations that large businesses have to take when they're doing business. So before you start trying to partner with these large organizations, take the steps. I mean, I'm not saying, you don't have to have the same level of discipline in these areas that they do, but ask your advisors, ask your friends, what are they going to ask me? And make sure you're ready for those answers around your financial, your legal affairs, your basic compliance issues, things like that. Also be ready with excellent references and referrals. Um, I would like to say, and personally, I really try as a business person to be very upfront about that and ask you for your references and referrals. I always will. Unfortunately, other companies will back channel you. So also be conscious of what your current other partners or others you've had experiences with are going to say about you, because they may be contacted. To that point, ask the hard questions. Ask the hard questions of you and your team. Ask the hard questions of their team, of the partner. And and that relates a little bit to the try to control the pace. It's difficult to do, but you need to try and take charge of that, because this is unfortunately way more important in the early days to you than it is to your partner, likely. So you're going to have to take control of it. And when I say ask the hard questions, I'm often surprised by what companies that I'm partnering with don't ask. And now I try and help, because I've learned the hard way. Wow, I wish they'd asked me that earlier. I'll offer it up to the best I can. But I'm not sure everyone does, or if you haven't been through it, you don't know. But there's nothing wrong with asking who really makes this decision. There's nothing wrong with asking, have you put this in your budget? There's nothing wrong with asking, have you assigned a team that is measured and will be rewarded based on the success of my partnership? Those are really important questions. There's just a few of them, but if you don't ask those questions and get satisfactory answers, you're probably spending your time. And as a smaller company, a scale up or startup, that's time you don't have to waste. So I would just say, really ask those hard questions, and make sure that you're getting the answers you need. And if you're not getting the immediate answers you need, ask, okay, so it's not in your budget. Oh, interesting. Help me understand how this partnership can be successful if your team is not compensated on it. Maybe this is something that's different in their company. Maybe it's easy, and they may be able to satisfy you, but make sure you do get that satisfaction before you proceed. Be ready. As I mentioned, the pace is unpredictable. This is actually the one that I think is hardest. And having been on the scale ups side of the table, this one's really difficult. You have your forecast and your business model. What I understood, having come out of large companies, and I know many of you have too, is that you can afford to be off by a fair bit on a partnership in your forecast, and you're going to cover it with other things, and it's not going to really make your life very miserable. But that same level of variation on the other side of the table can be absolutely toxic. Like if you built up your operations expecting a certain level of business and it never comes in, that can be very, very difficult. So you have to really think about how you're building flexibility into your own operation and your own model, how you're tempering the growth expectation with realism. Now, on the other side, there's really nothing more dangerous to the long-term success of a partnership than your operations not being able to deliver. So those sales come in and the customer's like your partner, let's say it's a selling partnership where you're trying to sell your products through them. They've gone out and sold your product. Now their customers have an expectation that you can't meet. Also very difficult. So make sure you're thinking very much through how you're going to operationalize on this, what it's going to need from your business if it goes wildly more successful than you think or wildly less successful, and have that open dialogue with your partners. Again, if your values are aligned at the first step earlier, that partner is going to be invested in your success. They're going to want to know those issues that you're facing. They're going to want to understand how you're prepared to deal with this or not, and they will want to help you because they don't want to get into this partnership and have it go off the rails either. So the thought of no surprises is really important. Try not to surprise your partner. Try to foresee what's going to happen and have that open dialogue with them so that if something does go wrong, they're your advocate inside your organization, not the one saying to their boss, oh, well, that's because these partners didn't know, right? Like you need to really be a partner here as well, and make sure that you're helping them understand your business. And then the final one I would say is build on existing partnerships. Now, of course, if you don't have any, you got to create the first one. So that's great. But a pitfall I've often seen companies go into is they get one partnership starting to work, and then they say, oh, this is great, I'm going to go out and do 4 more. Well, as I mentioned, your partnership is going to go a little bit like this. And when it does, your partnership is going to expect more from you. You know, they're going to expect you to be on that. Like they're your only customer, or they're your only partner. And it's really important that you don't disappoint them in that way. Similarly, you need to know when to take credit and when not to. Again, understanding their brand motivations, understanding what they're trying to get out of the partnership. And it's important that you let them get the credit they need to be able to continue to build support for your partnership inside their enterprise. Continue to reinforce your value and grow with that partner. And don't rush to find the next partner. Make sure you're on the path to exhaust the first partnership before you add the second, and the same with the third. Make sure, because you're going to get that to a steady place where it's really, really solid. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the best way to do that is to stay focused on your mutual end customer, and always make sure I'm going to make sure that end customer is getting what they need, so that they're not upset with my partner. And that's critically important. So those were that was my prepared remarks. I really wanted to get into questions and helping with answers, and I'm happy to cover over anything that we have, but hopefully that was a little bit helpful and a little bit based on my experience. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Yeah, so thank you, Heather. That was wow. That was a lot of good, tangible, precise, amazing advice that you've given here. Everything, I was kind of writing it all down. Really good and useful. So feel free, any questions through the chat, or simply just if you want to go on screen and raise your hand, you can do it that way. But this is a great chance to ask an expert who's kind of seen it all, and any little thing that you might be wondering about. It's a great opportunity to ask away.
I don't mind starting, Tara. It's Kathy.
Sure. Thank you.
Heather, I would ask one question with 2 parts. Would you make any different recommendations if I said the partner is government, or the partner you're hoping to get is a funder? Would there be anything different about how you approach the partnership?
I guess so. I would say if the partner is government, and I've partnered with government a few times, I'd say the two, I don't think anything's really different, but I think there's nuances on it. And what I'd say is if the partner is government, that importance of multiple relationships in your partner is probably something you want to over-index on. There's a lot of decision makers in government, and understanding who is making the decisions is really, really important. And, so as an example, is it the ministry is it the administrative group you're talking to? Is it the ministry you're talking to? Is it the treasury board? Is it the political level? Like how, where is your partnership going to get scrutiny, and how do you have to be prepared for that? I think, and managing those relationships is really, really important. I think, and I don't want to be unfair in the way it sounds, but that art of patience and persistence is probably something you want to over index on. And not because, by the way, I don't think, government is necessarily harder to partner with than business, but it just has a more complex decision-making structure. And so there's more people who are going to need to be involved, and that does take time, and more people that are going to be needing to be sold to, so to speak. The importance of the end customer is the same with government. It's just a different frame on it. They're not looking for profit. They're looking for, as I mentioned earlier, effectiveness and how you're improving their service delivery or their ability to serve their constituency group. So, but that piece is equally important. When it comes to funders, they're a little bit different in some of the things, in that you're likely to have a less operational relationship, but that you have to match into. But I would say you need to be more prepared for scrutiny. They will likely have even deeper scrutiny than a private sector partner will, no matter how large, because they're looking to put money in. They're going to ask more questions. The processes I would really pull on with the funders is what's going to be their expectation from you once you have funding. Understand their level of reward they're looking for, their pace of reward, their reporting requirements, how interested they're going to want to be, how many people they're going to want, to help you, and sometimes helpfully and sometimes not. So really understanding that and would be important. And then also the end customer is obviously a different type. Like you're likely to have less, sometimes they are, like as an example, if the funder is a venture company like ours that's aligned to a corporation, then we are interested in the joint customer angle, and the end customer. But if the funder is, as an example, a private equity or something else, they're more interested probably in either your impact or your returns, depending on, whether they're a social purpose investor or a profitability investor. But I think, most of the things are really the same. And the only one I think with a funder that could be different is the fifth one I talked about around, not moving on from your first partner. Some funders actually want you to have multiple funders. Yeah. So when you get to understanding their motivations and values, some funders will want to be, no, I just want to be your investor and I want to pass someday to buying the rest of you. But a lot of funders will actually find comfort in numbers. It's easier for them to explain to their investment board, that I'm investing in this company and so is X and so is Y, and that validates my investment. Yeah. So understanding that motivation of your funder and how they like to operate is really important.
Great question, and great answer. So I see in the chat, I don't know if you saw that, Heather, but Ahmed was wondering, how do you overcome and deal with the different management styles when partnering?
Yeah, it's difficult. And, I talked about that flexibility, and I think it's an excellent question, Ahmed, because I think that's one of the places you have to be flexible. And, I like to use an analogy. When I was first leading people as a manager, so to speak, I made a lot of mistakes because I thought that the secret to managing people was I had to read all the right books around how to be a good leader. And then I needed to do that and just apply it the same to as many people as I was leading. Only to learn the hard way that is not at all the secret to leadership. The secret to leadership is understanding what each of my people needs and figuring out how to give them that. And I would say it's very much the same when you're dealing with multiple partners inside your organization that you're trying to partner with. Some of the multiple management styles you'll deal with are because of functional differences. Like you will have different conversations with the finance team than you'll have with the marketing team, than you'll have with the sales team, than you will have with the P&L leader of your partner organization. But some of it is just personality, like they're motivated differently. Some people will, and I would say partnership, some of them will have had really great experiences partnering, as I have. Some of them will have been burned badly by partnering, counting on partner benefits in their P&L that never came, and they ended up having to fill that gap. So you're dealing with the sum total of the experiences of every individual. So that's why, getting to know them, getting to understand them, and then being flexible in how do you pitch your value, as I said, according to what it is they need. And by the way, I'm not at all advocating for, the strategy of find out what they need and then tell them that they're going to get it, whether it's true or not. Like, don't make that mistake. Like, you have to be authentic and you have to be real, but you have to discover what they need so that you can ask yourself, can our partnership deliver that? Because if it can't, you're going to burn a lot of cycles. And the worst thing that I've seen over the years happen in large to small company partnerships is, where someone in the large company wants this to happen. There's 3 other people that don't, but they don't want to have the hard conversation with the advocate. So they just make it go round and around and around and around. And you have this entrepreneur or scale up company pouring their heart and soul into a partnership that's never going to go anywhere. You have to suss that out. Like, that is the one thing you cannot survive in your business. So that comes to getting to know each of these players, understanding who really makes the decision here. How do I make the decision? Asking those hard questions I talked about, like, are you, is this in your objectives for next year? Is this in your budget for next year? Like, in a very polite way, but you need to be able to understand the differences of the people who are involved so that you understand decision making and you can actually get to support on the partnership. But the different personalities are a reality and the different motivations are a reality. And so it's an important question to ask, Ahmed.
Kathy, go ahead. You had a question.
Yeah, I have my hand up. Heather, this is awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wish I had sat in on this when I was in my 20s. I'm so excited for what you're saying with the crispness and clarity that Tara referenced a minute ago. So 2 questions. How do you suggest companies qualify a partnership, right? So the prep before we actually kind of make that first outbound inquiry. And have you seen over your career the value, or is there value in like reference partners? Like, do all partners carry the same cachet from a reference point of view? And should we be thinking about that when we prioritize and qualify partnership effort and time that we're going to put in?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Questions both. In terms of the first one, I think you do have to do that work up front. I talked about of understanding what you want to get out of it, and then researching the partner and researching the individuals, and and asking around a lot. Like, I would be looking for, if you say what characteristics would I look for in a partner, I'm looking for someone who's shown they can partner, right? And not by accident, by design. And what I mean by that is, like, and even in early meetings, I would ask, like, so how many partnerships has your department done in the last 5 years? How many of them have lasted more than a year? How many have you tried that weren't successful? And not to say, I mean, it's fine that there were some that weren't successful, but if you get like, oh, well, we've tried 100, none of them have lasted more than a year, that's not probably a partner I'd be looking to start with. If you get someone who says, well, we've tried 6, 2 of them are still going, 4 of them aren't, that's probably not bad odds when you really think about it. And then the follow-on question is, how long did you make the decision to discontinue the partnership? Because if they made that decision early, that's actually great. If they rope-a-dope that company along for a few years, that's actually really, really bad, right? So asking those questions, I think, and really, and to the point when I said earlier about making sure before you pitch, you understand what you're looking for, and you've done that self-reflection around, what am I trying to get out of this? What are the important pieces? Are our values aligned? Those upfront steps are really important, because you can really get lost in a bad partnership pretty easily. So that's, how I would think about qualifying it. In terms of the reference partnerships, I mean, obviously, big brands have value, so you'd be able to say household name X is a partner. That can help. I think a lot of companies, I actually think, and, I know some of your other master classes may have more insight on this, but I often have wondered, for funders, do they overthink the logo sheet? Like, you put up, oh, we're partnered with all these logos, and then funders sometimes, I think they'd say, oh, that's really exciting. Look, they're tell us that they're partnered with this and they're partnered with that. And I often sometimes, like, it's interesting, like, on the other side of that, I'll often see, someone will say, oh, I got a pitch from Acme Inc. and they want to sell us their service. And it says they're partnered with you. And I'll get a call and I'll be going, I never heard of them. Let me check with my team. I'll check with my team. I'll go, no one's ever heard of them here. We don't have any idea how our logo got on their logo screen. And by the way, our lawyer's going to send them a letter. Like, and that's really bad. Like when that happens, that all your trust is gone, right? So I don't know that funders do enough diligence on that logo screen, but what does have value is really referenceable partnerships. Like if I can talk to someone, and it doesn't even have to be a similar type of partnership. If I'm going to partner with someone, we will, and I, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be open. I'll tell you, I'm going to call your references. I'm going to call people I know in those companies on that you told me you're partnered with, and I'm going to ask how honest were they, how much they lived to their commitments, how focused they stayed on the customer, and did they do for you what they promised? Like those are kind of the basic questions. I'm not going to get into tell me the structure of your partnership, tell me what your term sheet was like, and like we'll figure all that out. But I'm going to ask what kind of a partner you are, and I'm going to ask how serious you are, and I'm going to ask how prepared you are. And those are the things that are most important to us in selecting partners.
That's awesome. Thanks, Heather.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So on that,
And that is another question. Oh, sorry.
You can see that here, Heather.
Yeah. Great. Yes, you should always have a graceful exit strategy, and your best graceful exit strategy is having those hard questions early and being known as someone who's going to ask the hard questions, because being known as someone who's going to have open, honest discussions, your partner will be more open to have them with you, and the partner will be more prepared for you to ask those types of questions. So that's your best exit strategy. Like in any scenario where, so first of all, in most scenarios, you're more likely to need, and I hate to say this, but I do believe it's factual, as a small entity, if you have a real partnership that you think is going well, you're way more likely for them to be on the downside of that hard discussion. So you're way more likely for them to say, this just isn't working for us, because your measure of success is going to be a lot smaller than theirs. If you're partnering with a large company, the amount, to have impact in their business, it's going to need to be bigger than it is for your business. And some will be patient for that and some won't. So you always need to be prepared for that discussion. And that can come out of, as I mentioned, a strategy switch, a personnel switch. So making sure your business is prepared to absorb that is really, really critical. But on the side of you wanting to exit, and maybe it's because they are taking too long and their requirements are too big. Maybe it's because they need more out of you than you can operationalize at this time. Maybe your funders are having trouble with the idea of this partnership. There can be a million reasons. Having the kind of relationship with the principal on the other side where you're both used to having really open, honest conversations is what will get you through that conversation too. If you think about it, if you say you're partnered with me in my business unit and I'm the prime for it inside of my business unit, if you're now partnering to the point where I'm really invested in continuing this partnership, I have done a lot of investing internally to make the case for this partnership. So for you to now come to me and say you need out, that's a tough discussion for me to manage. So the best thing you can do in that situation is be really open, really honest, and be very willing to explain your why. And if you can do that, I may still be angry, I may still be disappointed, but I will respect you. And 4 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, when it will happen that I get stopped on the street and someone says, hey, tell me about Acme Inc. What did you think of them? How I'm going to respond to that question is going to be based on how professional and upfront and transparent you were in that exit conversation. So it's really, really important. It's an excellent question.
Great. Thank you very much, Heather.
I would actually just curious, Heather, if you could offer an example just of one of the best partnerships that you've seen, or something that's, been a real kind of a highlight success story in your career where you've seen, a great partnership come to life, maybe through a long-term kind of process, but through kind of asking hard questions and, obviously.
Yeah. So, Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm only struggling because I'm wondering which one to choose to talk about that I can give enough color on it without breaking confidence.
Oh yeah, yes, like, or
Obviously.
even just yeah.
Yeah. So actually, before I joined TELUS, I'll share this. The company I worked for was a scale-up company, founder-led, and you can see it on my LinkedIn. The company's called BioScript Pharmacy, and the entire underpinning of that company, which is very successful now, a great Atlantic Canadian success story based out of Moncton, New Brunswick, was out of a partnership that I think is the biggest example of large and small you can have. So one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies was facing an issue with administration and care related to one of its drugs, and spoke to a pharmacist who owned an independent pharmacy in Riverview, New Brunswick, about the problem. And that pharmacist said, well, I think I can help with that. And, 20 years later, when I was in the company, which this is a thriving national company with 110 locations nationally, now has like 1,200 employees, and still a partner, and has many other partners, but still one of their foundational partnerships is that same company that they started with. And I can tell you a lot of what I learned about partnerships came from my experience in that entity, because that founder and that management team really lived a lot of the things I described in terms of being willing to have open and honest discussions, having shared values, really understanding we're here in that case for the patient. We're here for the joint outcomes in the care of that patient. And when you stay grounded in that, a lot of the other things that happen in between, a lot of the things in the areas of discontent can go away, because you're totally aligned on what you're trying to achieve for the patient or the customer, or whatever in the case is. So I think it's an amazing example. It's not credit to me; it's credit to those two co-founders who really built that beautiful company, and all on the back of partnership.
Love an Atlantic Canadian example too. That's always especially in the health space. That's great. So I don't know if there are any other questions. We've covered so much terrific content that I'll offer. Kathy, did you have another question?
I have one more, and
Yeah.
it would be, what if the partnership combined won't realize their benefits for some time? I'm thinking particularly on the social good type of partnership. Maybe I'm offering programs to try and get girls into STEM, and you're starting when they're 14 or 15, but you need a pretty significant partnership to mentor and coach them and guide them to get them to university. I'm trying to think of an example that it's 4 or 5 years out, that is really more on that side versus I got a product or a service that's going to benefit our joint customer. So that organization needs to have as a priority something aligned, but the benefits take time.
Yeah.
How do you sustain that energy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of the concepts are same. So first you have to start with that values alignment. Like, they've got to care about that outcome in the way you care about that outcome. Right. And I find social purpose investing, and actually like our Pollinator Fund, as I mentioned, is all about social purpose investing. But social purpose investing is very, very different than philanthropy. And you've got to know which side of that discussion you're on. Like, if you're talking to an entity who's thinking of you as a donation, it's going to be much, much harder to sustain that over time, because there's always going to be someone else with I shouldn't say more, but there's always others who have other timely investments that mean something to different members of the team, or different angles of their business that, can always displace you. But if you've aligned at the beginning that social purpose of what you're trying to achieve, and you have a reason to align in that outcome, like you want to see that outcome happen on both sides, then it's easier. But you do have to set up reasonable expectations from the beginning. And so as part of your pitch, like, you have to be clear, like, I believe it's going to take 10 years for us to see benefits, but it's 10 really important years. And I need you to be committed to me through that 10 years, 5 years, 3 years. and because if that's what you're looking for, having those expectations up front is even more, I would say it's even more important in that case than it is in a case like where it's a profit-based partnership, because those rewards are going to come over the long term, and you've got to be really sure that they have more than a passing interest in wanting to see that outcome happen.
Great, thanks.
And you've got to try and quantify it. And, like, it's interesting. I think when we think about things for profit, people get our head around really quickly. Okay, I have to quantify this. I have to build a business case. But when it's social purpose, they don't. And the reality is, on our side of the table, everything has to be quantified.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, the number can be 700 people in science, 700 more women in science degrees 5 years from now. Like, that can be the quantification, but there's got to be something that can be measured, and it's got to have a timeliness of the measurement.
Yeah.
Because there's no one who's going to keep writing you check year after year after year and not knowing how we're doing. Like, businesses just, if they're a for-profit entity, it's different if they're in and of themselves and not for profit. But if they're a for-profit entity that you're looking to get to, and there's lots of socially purpose-driven for-profit entities. TELUS is just one, and lots of companies get money, but that money too is scrutinized. Like, we give tremendous amounts to both on the philanthropy side and the social purpose investing side, and every single dollar of it is measured. And so you have to be able to come up with those measurement systems.
Yeah.
Fascinating. We are at time, and we are very grateful. We've had 60 minutes of your precious time, Heather, and there's a reason your bio reads the way it does. So thank you for all of that. That was really it was riveting and really actionable advice that we are able to share today, and then to our broader group of founders. So thank you for that. Most appreciated. And
Great. Well, it's my pleasure. I just hope it's been helpful. Hope it's been a valuable use of your time. That's what's most important.
Oh, it was terrific, and we're getting lots of great comments. Yeah. So we will share this on our YouTube channel, our Sandpiper Ventures YouTube channel. If there are any founders, or if you know anyone in your networks who are interested in getting in touch with Sandpiper, we are hello@sandpiper.vc, and love to chat. And we are excited to host more of these sessions. But Heather, it's just been an absolute pleasure today. And thank you everyone for questions and for your engagement. And yeah, we will see you for the next one. So watch our social channels for the next one. And everybody have a great evening. Great start to the week.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Al.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.